How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be setting up the switch with several different sys modules that together should allow us to overclock the switch, check the stats of the internals on the switch, and also potentially get us 60 FPS on certain games. We're going to be talking about this as we go along, but with that being said, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so we have a lot to unpack here. We have all the things we need to download and then some. But before we get started, I would like to quickly mention that you do need to have a moddable switch in order for any of this to work. So preferably using the Mariko OLEDs, which I'm going to be using in this video, because you're able to overclock it a little bit more than the V1, V2 Arista versions of the switch. So just wanted to disclose that just in case you try this out on your regular switch and some things may not be working like it's working for me. It's most likely because I'm using the Mariko and you're not. Maybe. It also could be the SD card as well. But for example, people with Paper Mario on the original Switch are having a severely slowed down gameplay with the 60 FPS mod. And mine is not that slowed down because I'm using the OLED. So just wanted to throw it out there before we get started because there is a lot of information here and I don't want to confuse anybody from the start. So let's go ahead and continue. Okay, so we have a lot to unpack here and I'm just going to start with the things that we need to download. Now, normally I like to download all these things and follow along the links with y'all on the websites. However, that's going to take a really long time and the video is already going to be long enough. So instead, I'm going to leave all the links in the description to these sites. They're all the same, the GitHub, and you just need to go to the latest release and click on the Assets tab and then download the link from there. But to get started, we're going to download the sys-clk. This is what we need in order to overclock the switch to its maximum potential. We need reverseNX. This will allow us to change handheld mode to dock mode and vice versa. So I'll be explaining that later on, but basically we can use handheld mode on dock mode so that way we can get lower resolution, get 60 FPS in dock mode. Then we need the Edison overlay because we're going to be using Tesla menu, and some of the mods that I'm going to be using in this video will require the Edison overlay to activate the 60 FPS mod. We need the FPS locker, which will allow us to max out the 60 FPS and look for it on the switch. I'll explain later on as we set it up, but it's going to force 60 FPS whenever it's possible. And this is the sys-clk that pretty much is the backbone of all of this to make it possible with its sys module. And then we have reverseNX, the tool, because we're going to have the overlay on Tesla menu. And on here, we're going to be able to use the Tesla menu to activate and disable dock mode and handheld mode. And then last, we have the status monitor overlay. And this will allow us to check the stats on the switch, make sure that the switch is not going to heat up and melt with the overclocking. We get to see the CPU, GPU, and FPS counter, which is the main thing that we're going to be using on the status monitor. That's the pretty much basic thing. Unfortunately, I can't really show where I can get these, but I just googled them, the game with the 60 FPS, and there were just really quick links to find there on Google. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here is the Tesla menu. That's the one thing that I did not have ready for y'all to download because sometimes the Tesla menu doesn't work for everybody. And a lot of times the links out there, they're not updated for the latest version of firmware, which is 18.0.1. Now, if you're interested, I do have my latest CFW pack with Atmosphere and Hecate. And in this pack, I use my version of Tesla menu. I update it from source on my end, so it's working for me. If you got to see my previous video on Paper Mario, I'm using the Tesla menu from this pack here. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link in the description so that way you can download that for yourself. Pretty much all you need to do is download these two zips, delete your Atmosphere and bootloader folder completely, and then extract both of these zip files to your SD card root and replace anything else that says needs to be replaced. I will also leave a link to Ultrahand because I know some people use Ultrahand over Tesla menu, which is pretty much the same thing. It's just a different way of opening it up and customizing. So there's going to be several different options for you. And if I'm being too confusing, you can leave a comment down below and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. But now that we have everything downloaded, now let's go ahead and open up the SD card. Okay, so with the SD card, it doesn't really matter how you open up your SD card as long as you're able to transfer your files successfully. I highly recommend using the SD card tools in Hecate. Have my PC to switch and access my SD card there. It is very reliable and never have any issues with it. If you want to know how to do this, you can leave a comment down below and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. Another thing with the SD card is you need to have CFW already set up on your SD card. So if you don't have this and you're new and you don't have anything at all, you're going to need CFW in order for this to work. So I'll leave a link in the description to one of my videos on how to set this up on your SD card. And it's going to be the same pack that I'm using in this video. If you're in the future, it might be a newer pack. But with that being said, we have the SD card set up. Now we can go ahead and extract these zip files. And another thing that I highly recommend is using 7-zip to extract these files. It's free and I never have any issues with it. It's up to you on what you want to use to extract your files. I just recommend using 7-zip. I'll leave a link in the description to download 7-zip if you want to follow along with me. But with 7-zip, I'm going to right click, find 7-zip, and then open the archive. I'm going to highlight all the files here in the archive and then extract them to the root or the empty space of your SD card. You want to drop it in the root because if you drop it in a folder accidentally, it's not going to work. So let's close out of here and then I'm going to move on to the sys-clk. And then with 7-zip, open archive, highlight all the files, extract them to the root of the SD card. Dropping them in the root will put everything in its appropriate directories. Now with sys-clk done, we can go to reverseNX and then have 7-zip open archive, extract to the root of the SD card. And then we have the status monitor overlay. Same thing, 7-zip open archive, highlight both files or all files and extract them to the root of the SD card. Last thing we have are the overlays for Tesla menu. Now this is important. If you already have Tesla menu, then you can drop these inside the switch folder and you should have a folder here that's called .overlays. If you don't have one, extracting the sys-clk I think actually creates a folder for you, but you do need to have Tesla menu in order for this to work. So you're going to want to drop these inside the overlays folder and just like so. And there we go. And inside the overlays folder, it should look something like this. You might not have everything, or you might have everything if you have my pack, but that's pretty much it. Now we have the SD card set up. And the last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I don't know if I remember saying it, but if you need the Tesla menu, my 2 packs here do have the Tesla menu. I did not add the Tesla menu because of issues with updating and it might not work for you, but it works for me with my pack. So if you want to use that, and then also if you use Ultrahand, if you already have Tesla menu, then you could just disregard anything I'm saying and just continue with the video here. But if you need it, you can just use my pack. So the SD card should be set up. If I'm being confusing, again, leave a comment down below and I'll try to explain a little bit better in detail on the comments. But other than that, the SD card is done. The next thing that we can do is add our mods. Now the mods vary differently. Even if I have these versions here, sometimes it may not be the same version that you get. So depending on how you put them will determine on how they get put. Determining how you get them, I mean, is how you would put them. Okay, so this part's not really important for this, but if you don't know how to do the mods, I'm just going to show it real quick. For Paper Mario, we have this mod here. I'm going to use 7-zip to open the archive, and it just has cheats and exifs. Now you just need the cheats folder because I think exifs is a patch file for the FPS locker or something like that, but we just want the cheats. So in order to activate cheats from Edison, you need to create the folder in the atmosphere contents. So let's go ahead and go into atmosphere, go into contents. Here we're going to create a new folder, and then you're going to want to find out what is the title ID for this game. In this case, Paper Mario is. Once you create the folder with the title ID of your game, you can go into it, and then after that you can just put in the cheats folder, and that should be it. Once you use the Edison overlay in Tesla menu, it should be able to be picked up because this is the directory that it looks for. So there we go. And now I need to do the same thing for Red Dead Redemption. And that's what it is. This it is 107820196A. Here. Now Doom Eternal is different because it's already set up in its directories. So once you have this here, you just need to drop this inside the contents folder. Now all we need to do next is test it out. So I can't show you where to get these games that I'm going to be using as an example, but if you know how, you know how. But other than that, we are done with the SD card, and we can now test it out. So I'm going to eject out of my SD card and then go into my Switch and see if we can get some FPS, 60 FPS on our games. Okay, so we finally made it to the Switch, and the first thing that we should check is to see if Tesla menu is working, because without it, then none of this is going to work for us. So with my version of Tesla menu, I do have a certain button combination to access it, and this is how I get into my Tesla menu. So if I hold the top shoulder button, left shoulder button, and then also hold down on the D-pad, these two, and then just press right analog one time, it should pop up the Tesla menu. So if your Tesla menu does not pop up, it is probably because you have a different version of Tesla menu, and I think you should be able to check your SD card root, the config file, and I think inside there it has a Tesla configuration file, and I think it says the button configuration for your Tesla version. But if it's the same as mine and it still does not pop up, then most likely the extraction to have this Tesla version on your SD card was not successful, and you may need to try again. So it's working for me, and I hope it's working for you. So if it is working for you, then we can just go ahead and move on. But if it's not, you can leave a comment down below, and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. But with Tesla menu open, we have all of the sys modules that we have added in this pack, or this CFW, and we have FPS locker, which we can't use until we're running a game. reverseNX is also the same. We can't use it till we're running a game. Status monitor is what I use to check for FPS. We can either have FPS counter in the top left corner, or we can have a full status of the monitor of the Switch, everything that is being run in the background. And we also have a different size as well too, that has just the basics that are most important with overclocking. So with that, I'm going to just back out because now we need to do the overclocking on the Switch. It is on. Also, we need to open up when the game is open, so we're not going to do that yet either. The sys-clk is where we do the overclocking. So once we open it up, we see that my profile on the top, in the middle, it does say that I'm in dock mode. And like I said before in the beginning of the video, it may differ from Switch to Switch because the Arista models are, I don't know if they're a little bit slower, but you can't overclock them as high as the Mariko models. So here we have that it's enabled. We can edit the app profile and individually change the overclocks for these different ones. I just go to temporary overrides, and it does override all other profiles all at once, which doesn't really matter because it's only going to pick up one. So for here, I'm just going to go to CPU, and we have to max it out in order for this to work. So we're going to max out CPU, we're going to max out GPU, and max out the memory. So you can see now my GPU, CPU, and memory have changed on top to their maxes, and now we should be able to test out our games and see if we can get 60 FPS. So just like on my previous video, we're going to test out the Paper Mario, and all we need to do now is just run it. Alright, so once you get into the game and before you start playing it, you could open up Tesla menu first and you can already start to do your adjustments. So before I do any type of adjustments, I want to check to see what kind of FPS we're at right now. Go into the status monitor, and it shows that we are in 30 FPS. So that is with dock mode. I was talking about dock mode has 1080p at 30 FPS, and in order to get 60 FPS in dock mode, you have to change dock mode to handheld mode with reverseNX, and it will downgrade the resolution, but it should allow you for some extra space to give you 60 FPS. And that's what I'm going to do right now. But before I do anything, I'm going to go back into the Tesla menu, and then I'm going to change my FPS locker to increase it to max 60 FPS whenever it's available. So right now, that's pretty much it. Our mod is already enabled. If we check it, it is already enabled on and ready for us to test. So even though I did the FPS locker, we should be getting 60 FPS right now, but when I start the game, it will go down to 30. So let's go ahead and start the game and see how it looks. Alright, so there you go. Because I'm in dock mode, I'm going to be getting 30 FPS. And since I have the mod already enabled, I can activate the mod by pushing ZL and D-pad up. I think that's what it says here. I'm going to just check it real quick. ZL and D-pad up to activate 60 FPS. Okay, it's already enabled. Let's go to the status monitor, and I'm going to show you how it runs here, running normally at 30 FPS. And when I activate the 60 FPS mod, it's going to be severely slowed down because it's taking so much resources and it's not allowing us to get good frame rate. So what we need to do in dock mode only, because if you're in handheld mode, then you're automatically going to have 60 FPS, and that's what dock mode has this issue. So in order to get around this issue with dock mode, you're going to want to use reverseNX. So you go back into your Tesla menu, go into the reverseNX RT, or it's the tool, and here we're going to change the system control to no, and we're going to change the mode to dock mode. And once I change this, you can see the characters are kind of going a little slow, and once I change it, they're going to be going a little bit faster. So there you go. It did go down in resolution. I don't know if you got to see the little flash of, got a little bit more blurry, but we should be at 60 FPS now. Let's go to the status monitor, and there we go. And the game is running a little bit more smooth now, or smoother, and it's at 60 FPS. So that's what it would be like. And what I was talking about earlier with the mods, it's important to have this mod activated, because if I didn't have the mod activated, I would still have 60 FPS, but look how the game reacts when I take it off. Oops, there you go. So we need the mod to regulate this, and it doesn't do this to all games. All right, so if you don't have the mod on, look how fast it goes. Let me turn on the mod now, and I'm gonna do the same thing, and now it's kind of back down to normal speeds. But another thing that's wrong with this mod is that when it has dialect, the typing is a little bit slower, and there's nothing you can do about it because the Switch is ultimately not really that powerful enough. That's why I said it needs to be at least the OLED Mariko models, or else you're not going to get that much power to use the mod. But maybe using it on the OG Switch with the FPS locker might be normal speed, I'm not sure. But there you go. Let's try it out. Oh man. There you go. No mod on, but we start at 60 FPS in dock mode and handheld mode. And if I add the mod, it goes back to normal speed, but we have slower dialect. There you go. the graphics are already downgraded, and it gives it a little bit more wiggle room to have the extra power for 60 FPS mod. Alright, so that's pretty much it with Paper Mario. It does need to have the mod 60 FPS in order for it to run decent, but that's how you would get 60 FPS with dock mode. You would have to change it to handheld mode. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to the next game and see what we can do on that one. Okay, so here we are in Doom Eternal, and the mod for 60 FPS on here is a whole lot different than the others. It already has its pre-configurations to help with 60 FPS, even in dock mode. But as you can see, I'm looking into the distance here, and I have 47, 46. Some places I have 60, and it's just bouncing up and down from 42 to 60. And, you know, that's not really consistent. And I believe it's because we're in dock mode. If we can go into handheld mode, it will relieve some stress off the resolution, and it will allow us to get 60 frames a lot more consistent. But on the left hand side, I do have the different monitor settings to see where we're at with our CPU and GPU. And it looks like they're running pretty high on CPU already, and GPU is at 96%. So this thing is running as much as it can. But let's see what will happen if we change it to handheld mode, and if we can give it some relax. So we use reverseNX to change to handheld, and see how it bumps straight into 60 FPS immediately. So there you go. Even when I was looking at this distance, it was at 47, 42, and now it's kind of staying around 58 to 60. So there you go. But you can tell a little bit of difference that the quality has gone down some. But it's up to you. You see, what do you think about it? Is 60 FPS doable here? Let's get into some game fights. But we're at 60 FPS, but we're in 720p in dock mode. Let me change it back. See what it looks like. Drop down to 49 to 50 FPS. I still think this is fine. I think it would be better to give it some wiggle room and actually bring it down to 30 FPS. Oh, it seems a little bit more choppy. It's not as smooth, but it feels faster. I don't know. It feels different. But you can mess around with these settings. Handheld mode would definitely give it a little bit more ease. Let's see what it's checked, what the things say. Now it says it's a little bit easier on the GPU. Kind of the same. It's just a demanding game to be at 60 FPS. I think this is one where you should just be happy with regular 30 FPS. It's terrible. But there you go. I'm gonna stop it right there. I know my audio is really low, but I don't know if the music is gonna get me. So just wanted to show that this runs at 60 FPS. If you're in handheld mode, you would be able to run this at 60 FPS because it's already at 720p. So the reverseNX does not apply to you. All right, so here we are in Red Dead Redemption. I'm using the DLC, the Undead Nightmare, as reference. And you can see in the top left corner, I am at 30 frames per second at the moment. And I haven't tried the mod yet, but I did the FPS locker on its own, and I was able to get 60 FPS with handheld mode. So same thing, just like the other games. As long as I'm in handheld mode, I can reduce the resolution, but get 60 FPS. That's the only thing with handheld mode. So I'm gonna upscale this to 60 FPS, and there we go. So if I go to the status monitor, I should have 60 FPS already. On the top of the screen, it is showing that I have 60 FPS. Kind of dropping from 58 to 60. Trying to run fast and see. What the hell have you been drinking? Okay, so since I have that, I don't have the mod on. Let me see what the mod does. I don't even know if it's already running. Oops. I don't want to get killed already. Okay, so let's add the mod. Did I add it right? Well, the mod is not there, and I'm not sure if it's working. But I do have 60 FPS already with handheld mode. And the FPS locked at 60 FPS. All gone crazy. My monitor looks way better than my screen capture, so it doesn't feel like it's doing any justice. But we're at 60 FPS. I'm gonna try and add the mod again to see if I did it wrong, but see if what differences does it do. So I'll get back to you when I have it fixed. So far we have 60 FPS already here. Like I said on the other games, if you're in handheld mode, then the reverseNX doesn't really apply to you. Okay, so I just got back from checking to see what happened with the mod, and it looks like it turns out that the mod is not really working so well on the Switch. That this mod was mainly made for the emulators like Yuzu and reverseNX, and has a harder time with the Switch. So according to the site that I'm on, it says that you can use the FPS locker, which I'm already using, in order to access 60 FPS. So I guess this is one of those games that you can use the FPS locker to have 60 FPS on your game. Just wanted to let y'all know that because I didn't know that at the time. But other than that, everything is working for me. I know this is going to be a really long video, so if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. There's a lot of information here. If you still need more information, you can leave a comment down below, and I'll try and help you out as best as I can. If you're confused, leave a comment as well. If you decide to try this out for yourself, let me know what game that you try on 60 FPS. I was going to also show Dark Souls here. A lot of games don't run automatically on 60 FPS or don't run at all. It's here and there. like Doom Eternal, I used the FPS locker and it didn't work with just the the boost, I had to use the 60 FPS mod. So some of the games won't work. Some of the games are already at 60 FPS, like the Mario Wonder, which was very surprising. But there you go. So let me know how you feel about this. Let me know if you try it. Let me know if it works for you. Other than that, thank you for watching. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.